Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sunday evening, actually. And important day today because today we're going to be diving into the stealthy world of B2 Spirit bombers. Yes, those invisible giants of the US Air Force, from their radar defying design to their strategic role in power projection, especially in tense moments like what we're seeing in Iran right now. It's been pretty intense. And we have somebody who I really count on whenever these things come up, and that's Sandeep Unnithan. Of course, you all know him. Premier defense expert, weapons expert. You see a gun and you send him the image, and he'll tell you exactly what it is, where it's from, how many years has it been in existence. So, really interesting day today, Sandeep, because this stealth bomber, what do you make of it? And Sandeep is gone. Just as we were getting to his question, he's gone. But I'm going to keep this going till he comes back. And we're, of course, also going to do a show at 8 p.m. But I just think that those stealth, the B2s, they look like something that Batman would own, right? To put it in a very pedestrian way. It looks exactly like something Batman would be cruising around in. Trump, of course, yesterday the headline was that it's going to take us 2 weeks to decide. It's going to take him 2 weeks to decide if they're going to enter the war. Well, everybody knew that was not really what was going on. It was the usual subterfuge, double speak, and there you go. 4 a.m. in the morning, the B2s were out there and went ahead and bombed Iran, as they call it, Iran. But here we are. We're waiting for Sandeep to come back in. I apologize. He's in a network zone that's not looking that cool as far as internet is concerned. And you're right, Vantam. I mean, those B2s really do look very, very cool, and they're very lethal. It is a beautiful bird, so to speak. But I want to understand a little more about it. I mean, we know it's got this bunker busting capability. That's why it was pulled out. It's uniquely American. It's more than just, I think, a plane or a jet or a fighter jet. It's really a statement, isn't it? Because the moment you bring those boys out, everybody's paying attention. Even those who were not paying attention earlier are paying attention now. So it's a pretty incredible impact as far as that is concerned. It's also, just goes to show another thing that I've been noticing about this particular war, and since its inception, is really how alone Iran is, Shia Iran, I must say. One thought that more people would come out and support it, be it China, Russia, be it other Islamic nations, but we haven't really seen that happen. In fact, Pakistan played the duplicitous role. They went ahead and right in the beginning and said that we condemn this and they're our neighbors, etc., etc. And subsequently, Field Marshal, or as Sushant Sareen says, failed Marshal, went to the White House for lunch, recommended Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize, if you please, and subsequently went ahead and basically told Iran, or didn't tell Iran, and tied up with the US. I think the air bases, I was listening to an interview of somebody, and they were saying that those air bases are literally swamped with Americans, and it's like a complete takeover. So this whole thing of I'm with Iran and this and that and the other, it was all nonsense. I don't think you can trust them at all. And I don't think the Iranians trust them. Certainly the Afghanis don't trust them, and the Indians don't trust them. So here you have neighbors on all three sides who just don't trust these people. So interesting days ahead for Pakistan, I think, once the dust on this really settles down, because this kind of betrayal, I would assume, is difficult for someone to forget. And the Americans operating from there is something that would not have been anticipated even a week ago, in terms of just strategically for a country that shares such a long border with Iran to be doing that in such a scenario, war situation. But that's exactly what they did. I think Sandeep's having some serious trouble, and I'm left discussing the war. So we'll give it another 5 minutes. If you want to ask any questions or have any comments to make, please go ahead and put it in the comments. And we'll wait for him to connect again. Nearly 100 of you here, and I just want to say sorry because he was here, and then he pretty much dropped out of the conversation. Okay. Naman Singh Renegi, from Uttarakhand. Why do you seem so impressed? Okay, I have like really a superficial interest in them, frankly, because they're stealth. I think I'm very intrigued by the future of stealth warfare. I want to understand more about it. And Sandeep is someone who's really clued on, so that's why I wanted to bring him in, because I think increasingly, especially the Americans right now, they're not going to put boots on the ground, right? And to have these bombers, someone just telling me that I read somewhere that they can fly like 37 hours non-stop. And it's not as teeny tiny as you would expect it to be in the insides, as usually fighter jets are. It's quite spacious. So they have a crew of about 2 or 3 people. I don't know if someone has better details. Let me know. But it's just a fascinating plane. It does look beautiful. I agree with some people. Oh, there. I know. Only truth. I'm not wasting your time. You can leave, but the problem is I'm waiting for Sandeep to join us. He was here and he got bounced out, and we're just waiting over here. I'm just keeping the conversation going. That's really all that I'm doing, because it's hard to catch hold of him. He's on TV all the time now because of this situation. It started with Operation Sindoor, and so getting a little bit of his time is a big thing. And for who was asking, AIM will be back for the Sunday Club at 8 p.m. So AIM will be joining us there. So in case you're missing him right now, I asked him, but he's at his sister's house where she has really bad internet connectivity. So he can't join right now, but he'll be here at 8 p.m. So that's the other thing. Any more questions? I'm going to just check with Sandeep about where he is and find out if he's coming back on. Can he come back on? Because he's been off for a bit. So let me just figure that out with him. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask them. How about 3 shows per week? Kshitij, I want to get more regular, but 3 shows per week might be a little excessive for me. But let me just try and figure that out, because I'm also a writer, and that takes a little bit of time. So, but I will definitely try and get on to doing more shows at least than what I'm doing right now. Okay, I'm gonna call Sandeep, right? So it'll take me a minute, but we'll get a sense of whether he's coming back or not. Hi. Hello. Okay, his phone is also blanking out. This might be something a little more serious. I really apologize, guys. It's very unlike him to not be here. I hope there's no issue, because his phone's kind of bouncing out. And yeah, I think there has been a lot of talk in the media about really our fighting fleet, our flying fleet, and whether we have the necessary planes that we need to have, not just the stealth fighters, but even the actual like numbers that we need. And that's something that's not quite clear right now, whether we have those numbers. In fact, it was called unprecedented, but the Air Chief Marshal, I think, was it him who kind of made a reference to the fact that we just don't have enough planes, as many as we should have. So that's the other thing. Well, Sandeep's trying to get back online, so hopefully that's going to happen very soon. Otherwise, my apologies, and we'll be back at 8 p.m., of course, with the Sunday Club, but let's see. You guys always blame me, but it's very rarely me who has an issue, by the way, as you can tell. Very, very rarely me. Where are you? Why don't you join with audio? Because there are people still here, and yeah, we were live. You could do it through Google Chrome. Or just get on through your mobile phone. Don't use the internet. Come on through the mobile phone. You just need to click on the link. Just do that. Okay, he's trying. He's in a crazy area. He's in a crazy zone where there's some issues with the connectivity, but he's trying. So we'll just give. If you, I mean, you guys are still here, so I think it's only fair to sort of wait. Any more questions? Anything else you want to talk about? I guess we do an AMA till he's here. Anything at all that you want to speak of? I don't think this particular war is really going to go into any spaces that we think it might go into, like World War III. If you go to YouTube astrologers, all of them are talking about how this is the sort of tipping point. I don't see other countries really joining in. Up to now, only Yemen has sort of jumped up, another Shia country, and that's not Yemen as in Yemen, but that's like part of Yemen, which the Houthis control. They're the ones who are sort of saying that we're in the war now, and you better not have your ships coming through our strait, otherwise there's going to be trouble. So that's the only people who've actually come out with some sort of actionable commitment for Iran. And really, I mean, even when you saw, like, even when Operation Sindoor happened, it was pretty much people just don't want to get into the war. Even if you're a great friend, they just kind of back off and do their own thing. But in this case, it's really starkly obvious because remember, geographically, also, Iran is in an area where it's surrounded by Sunni neighbors, and they don't really like them too much. They don't like Iran too much. Saudi Arabia doesn't like Iran at all, whatever they may be saying. So Iran's kind of squeezed into a really tough place. But if it wasn't such an opaque, closed regime, if it wasn't so oppressive when it came to women, I think it would have more friends because just strategically it makes sense to have a friend like that in that area. It's a massive, massive country. But, I think they're just so opaque, so harsh to women that they don't really make friends with the rest of the world that easily. Although it's a great culture, great people, great, pretty much everything. It's beautiful. But this is an issue. And it's really sad to see this happening in a sense because you really feel like they're on their own on this one. But what do you do? But Prime Minister Modi reached out to the Iranian president. He conveyed his condolences and, of course, said that let's have some positivity, let's have some conversation, some dialogue, some de-escalation. Basically, he said all the right things, but it's at this point now where even if Iran wants it, are they going to be able to achieve it? And then did they really make a mistake by stringing the Americans along for so long during those diplomatic talks wherein they were, kind of not really committing to anything when it came to the uranium enrichment program? I think the standard is not more than 4%, and they've gone way beyond that number. And the Americans were sort of in Oman. They were supposed to have the last or the final meeting on last Sunday, and that's the day prior, that night, that Israel struck. So a lot of people at that time were saying, "Oh, Israel struck because they didn't want these diplomatic negotiations to actually reach a point of fruition." On the other hand, they'd been going on for so long, and there was a deadline. The deadline passed, yet nothing was achieved. So the Americans and Trump, who's always after the deal, was getting very impatient and annoyed. And Netanyahu just went in for the kill because Netanyahu has been itching to take Iran on, and it was now or never sort of a situation for him. So he just went in, and then there was this whole point of whether the Americans will actually join in this war, so to speak. Iran now calls it a war, by the way. After this last attack by the American B2s, Iran is now calling it a war. So we'll call it a war. So it was, whether the Americans wanted to get into another war, because remember, Trump came on with the mandate that they wouldn't put America into any more wars. They wouldn't send boots on the ground. They'd lost too many young people to these kind of wars, and they just didn't want to do it anymore. And that was an extremely popular sentiment. So Trump was kind of hailed as the anti-war president, because every other president, namely in the recent past, be it Biden, be it Obama, or for that matter, Bush and his war on terror, had taken America into wars, into big, costly battles, which cost a lot of money, which spent a lot of lives that needn't have been spent. And then the Americans are feeling like, what did we get out of this? Because we left Afghanistan. We all know the shameful way in which they left Afghanistan. And the saddest thing was that there were a lot of people, like local Afghanis, who were actually cooperating with the Americans on the ground. So when they left suddenly like this, those people were taken by surprise, and they had tied their fate to American presence on the ground. And suddenly these people were gone. And these are brutal areas. These are brutal areas. So those people lost their lives. Women went back into the dark ages, and the Americans were just out of there. And they left their equipment, very expensive equipment for the Taliban, and that was it. What did that war achieve? So the Americans really do have a problem with this kind of, I guess, escapade that people are having now. And come, Sandeep is saying, shall join in. I don't know if he's talking about 8 p.m. or now. But yeah, so Trump came in on an anti-war mandate and promised, and MAGA, which is extremely vociferous and really is the movement that made Trump, or some would say Trump made, but they're his sort of passionate followers, are very anti-war, because they're all about America first. They're about the economy. They don't want to do anything that's expensive, that'll push America back. There's an actual existential crisis among MAGA supporters, because they're feeling that America is losing its dominance in the unipolar world, and that's where the Make America Great Again thing comes from. And they're whole scene is that, look, we weren't going to get into these wars. This wasn't something that we wanted to do, and now Trump's taking us back into a war. And Sandeep's back also, but let me just finish this point. So you see a real split. So you have people like Bannon, who was Trump's chief of staff, then fell out with Trump during the first term. Then he was in exile for a very long time. And then I think when Trump decided to fight again, Bannon came back, again became besties, again became a sort of ideological footprint of the MAGA movement. And he's very anti-war. Tucker Carlson, who's, of course, a very famous journalist, is very anti-war. There's a great interview doing the rounds of Tucker Carlson and Senator Cruz, Ted Cruz. And it's interesting, it's fascinating, because Tucker Carlson's like, I don't want this war. We shouldn't have it. And Senator Cruz is, of course, saying we must get into this war with Iran, or Iran, as they call it. And Tucker Carlson asked him a simple question. He says, do you know how many people live in Iran? And Ted Cruz has no answer. So there you go. You're invading a country, you're participating in a war, and you don't even know how many people it's going to impact. It's kind of shocking. But here we are with Sandeep. Finally, Sandeep, I had to basically filibuster for about 17 minutes, because I don't know anything about B2s. I know about the war and the chemistry involved, but I don't know that much about B2s, except I was telling you offline, it looks like the Batmobile has got wings.
Yeah, well, actually, you're right, Advaita. Firstly, thanks for having me on your show. Well, the thing is that the B2 is a bomber that's literally straight out of the Cold War. Now, the United States has three types of bombers. It has the B-52, which dates back to the end of the Second World War. It's still in service. It will continue for another 2 decades or so. It has the B-1 Lancer, which is another yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
It has the B-1 Lancer, which is the second type of bomber, which is again a supersonic swing wing high-speed bomber, and then it has the B-2. Now, the B-2 is a stealth bomber, and it dates back to the Cold War. It was meant to be uh, a platform that could bring in conventional and nuclear weapons into enemy territory and flying completely invisible to enemy radar. And that's why it's been designed in that way. If you look at it, it looks just like a flying wing. Uh, it's a it's got a range of about 11,000 kilometers. It has four engines, and as you've seen with the attacks that the United States just carried out on Iran, it has a phenomenal range. I mean, it possibly was refueled once or twice. It flew from the continental United States and went all the way to Iran, bombed the targets, and then continued flying due west back to the United States. So you're talking of like a 40-hour combat mission, and this is ordinarily what B2 crews do. And the thing about the B2s, again, that it is a very expensive aircraft. It costs $2.2 billion for a B2. And that's the reason that only about 21 were ever built. 21 were built and only 19 are in service. Two have been retired after air crashes. They've had accidents. And 19 are still in service. So you're looking at something like 6 of those, almost a fourth of that fleet was used to attack Iran today. And
I want to ask you some basic questions, Sandeep. How many pilots does it take to fly the B2?
Well, it's got a crew of about 3 pilots, and they have a small bunk there and a lavatory, which they can use for these long flights. So it's pretty cramped. It's not a very comfortable aircraft.
But it's bigger. It's larger than other planes, because I read somewhere that this plane can fly 37 hours non-stop.
Yeah,
and I was like, okay, but what happens to the pilots? I mean, do they eat? Do they sleep? Do they use the facilities? I mean, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah. So it is one of those long rangers which is built for flying. It was built to basically attack targets inside the Soviet Union and of course China. And that is when this development lasted through the 80s, and it was first used during the Gulf War, the first Gulf War, and then it's seen use in a couple of other theaters as well. But this is, I think, the first large-scale use of the B2s in the numbers that we've seen today. 6 of them being used, and to carry that weapon that was used for the first time in combat, the GBU-57, a very unique weapon, which we've only heard of. We've seen we've seen photographs of that weapon, but we've never seen it used in the way that the President Trump seems to indicate it was used. And that it's a monster. It is the largest conventional weapon ever developed. It's something like almost 15 tons. It weighs 15 tons, and 15 tons is almost the weight of 3 MiG-21 fighter aircraft. That's how heavy that bomb is. And
so tell me, but how expensive is this weapon that they've used, and what kind of damage would it have caused?
Well, this weapon, it would cost in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. The exact costs are not known, but not many of them were built. I mean, I remember seeing a figure of about 20 that were ever built. This kind of weapon, it's a very specialist kind of weapon. It's used for very, very specialized missions to, hit command posts which are very deep underground. It's usually who hides underground, that deep. 60 meters. It's meant to go with the sheer kinetic force, go straight down and then explode.
How deep underground do you think these nuclear... Sandeep, how deep underground do you think these nuclear installations were?
Well, Isfahan and Natanz are basically mostly on the surface. Natanz is a bit under the ground, a couple of meters under the ground. But Fordo was a specialist kind of site. It was built, it started construction in 2003. And until I think about 2005, the structures were above the surface. But then a few years later, they suddenly started going underground, and they kept going below and below. and they are believed to be something like 90 meters underground. So they've literally buried, burrowed under that mountain that is there, north of Qom, which is south of Tehran. It's a huge set of mountains there, and there's a religious, a very important Shia religious center there in the city called Qom. That's Quom.
Com, yeah, it's QOM. It's where
QOM.
all the Ayatollahs and the Shia clerics study.
Yes.
It's sort of like, I guess they're Deoband in many ways, and
Yeah.
that's where a
Exactly.
lot of the imams come out from those seminaries in Com. So it has a lot of spiritual
Yeah.
significance for education and study for the Shias. Go ahead,
and
Sandeep.
it's also, and it's also where the shrine of Fatima is there.
Hmm.
Not the daughter of the prophet, but this is another Fatima who's very revered in Shia, mythology and Shia history. So it's very important for the Shias in that sense. And this facility is just a little north of that, about 40 or 50 kilometers north of Qom, and it's in the mountains, and it's buried deep for a purpose. They obviously wanted to create a facility that would endure any kind of ordnance that anyone in the world had, which was, and it's supposed to be even buried deeper than the reach of a MOP, GBU 57. So one really doesn't know whether the US actually succeeded in destroying it, because I'd like to see the bomb damage assessments and
Yeah.
the reports of the damage and all that. So
Some
if
reports, I think I saw on TV, some reports are saying that there are these, of course, tunnel entries.
yes.
And what the US has managed to do is destroy two on either side, and that's about it. That's what the Iranians are claiming, that, nothing more than that has happened. This is all that they've done, is that they've managed to damage the entry and slash exit points on four
Yeah.
locations. That's their
But
claim.
yeah, but if you look at the quantum of ordnance that's been used, I mean, 12 MOPs that were dropped over there, that's a lot of ordnance. And if they were used in the way that they're described, as in they go straight down underground and they explode, the impact of so much of TNT going off, it would have created significant damage in the halls, in the enrichment halls below the surface, which is where the actual facility is. And so that's obviously, they must have planned all this right through. And plans exist for everything. It's just the
Yeah.
presidential
Yeah.
approval that needs to be given. Or
Another
in our
question Tiger is asking, it's interesting. He's saying F-35 is costlier than the B-2 bomber.
No, 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 no. The B2 is way, way costlier than an F-35. There's no comparison. The F-35 is just about $100 million a plane. There are three variants of that. The B2 is $2 billion, $2.2 billion a plane. It is the most expensive piece of military hardware flying that's ever built. The most expensive military platform is a Nimitz class carrier, and now a Ford class carrier that costs upwards of $10 billion. But a B2 is $2 billion. So with five B2s, you could buy one Ford class aircraft carrier. That's if anyone's selling it.
You're eating now. At least I was better than you. I kept the conversation going. Can you hear me?
Yes. Am I
Okay, great.
visible? Sorry,
Yes,
I
you're
just keep.
visible. You keep eating,
I
and
keep.
I said at least I was when I got out, I came back and I thought you'd be holding fort because this is your area. Unlike me, who's holding fort waiting for you, and I come back and I eat like a lily. So there you go.
Oh.
Okay, okay, Sandeep. So where were we at? You were telling us about. I was telling you that Iran is claiming that the Americans not really achieved at what the Americans set out to do. They not really achieved that. I want to talk to you about stealth warfare. How are we, India, positioned?
Well, we're not there yet. We should be there in a couple of years when we get the F-35 equivalent of India, which is the AMCA, the Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft, which is a fifth generation fighter aircraft, which will have stealth features. But as of now, none of our aircraft have stealth. So we are a little under equipped when it comes to stealth. We we're very good in some areas. We're deficient in the others, and one of those areas is stealth warfare. I mean, this is very few countries in the world have these kind of capabilities. It's just the Americans, and to some extent the Chinese and the Russians. But the Americans have a let's say a 15-year leap over everyone else when it comes to stealth bomber technology. Maybe not fighters, but stealth bombing is something that they've, these stealth bombers, they've been investing in the research for this for decades. So you
But
have the
tell me
B,
something.
yeah,
Something like even if the Chinese had a stealth bomber, we
yeah.
wouldn't know, right?
We wouldn't know till, till it appeared in public or it was tested, and there are some reports of Chinese stealth bombers being tested because the Chinese are in a game with the Americans, and they have been trying to
Exactly.
replicate the kind of capabilities that the Americans have when it comes to either whether it's carrier strike groups or it's nuclear submarines or it's stealth bombers. So the Americans have the B-21, which is the new stealth bomber which will actually replace the B-2 Spirit in the 2030s onwards. So they're already working on this aircraft called the B-21 Raider, which is being tested right now, and it will be in service. I'm not sure of the unit cost, but it is definitely upwards of $2 billion a piece. Very expensive aircraft, and it is meant to, like I mentioned earlier, it's meant to fly into contested enemy airspace where you got a lot of air defense radars and missiles and fighter jets and all of that. This is meant to quietly go in through all of those heavily defended areas, and it has a radar cross section of a bird, so you can barely see a stealth bomber when it comes. It will precisely drop the munitions, in this case the GBU 57s, and it will leave without a trace. So it's like a ghost. So that's why it's called the Spirit.
The Spirit. Now, the other question I have from you is, Sandeep, if they did target a nuclear facility, how dangerous are the emissions going to be? What's happening? Because there are some reports saying that the Americans had told the Iranians they were coming, so they evacuated a lot of their product, I guess, and so there won't be that kind of
There are some
disaster.
dangers of a radiation leakage from attacking a nuclear enrichment site. But so far, there's been no sign of any of that. The IAEA has come out with a statement saying there's no radiation leakage from any of those sites. And in any case, given the fact that Fordo, for instance, which is so deep underground, if it is attacked, that whole thing would have just caved in. If you go by what the Americans are saying, what they did, that we've completely wiped out the
Obliterated.
Yeah, obliterated is the word that Trump used. So
Yeah.
it would seem that the whole mountain would have kind of collapsed on that facility, and literally covering that whole place in radioactivity. Or we have to actually see the bomb damage assessments, Advaita. I mean, why should we be asked to produce all kinds of evidence for the bombs that we drop, and
Yeah,
not
exactly.
demanding of the Americans when they claim they have hit and obliterated sites, right? So
Exactly.
we acted in our national interest to do what we did with Pakistan. The Americans have acted in their national interest, but I think the bomb damage assessment remains to be seen. So when you're talking of Operation Sindoor, for instance, there were all those strategic experts who came out and said, "Oh, these damages are not significant. They can be repaired overnight." It's been a month now, and I think the Pakistani bases are still the way they were a month back on the 10th of May, right? They continue to be out of operations, and they are still the craters in the runways haven't been fixed. So it's that damage is there for everyone to see in full
But
view.
Sandeep, this leads me to the next question. Pakistan and the Americans, they are in these friendships of convenience, right? So, what do you think the present day convenience is for both these countries? For Pakistan, it's obviously money. They need money. They'll take money. The generals need money. What are the Americans looking at? What are they getting out of this?
No, the Americans are getting bases. They're probably getting the use of Pakistan's airspace. They probably get to use their naval bases. So it's all part of the contingency planning. So the strikes in Iran, like I've been arguing for several days now, would have been in the pipeline for several weeks and months. And how the planners would sit and discuss it is that, okay, we need to go into Iran. What are our options? So it's option A, option B, option C. Okay, now how will the Iranians react? Or the Iranians could kind of, tie up with the Pakistanis. They could be a Iran-Pakistan front. The Pakistanis would join in the conflict or something like that. So all of these contingencies would have been worked out and war gamed. And they would have said, hey, listen, we need to keep the Pakistanis out of this game. They must be as far away from the Iranians as possible. So how do you do that? I have no insight into what is going on, but I'm just guessing this is, given the kind of, the way the Pakistan army chief has been treated in the White House, and Trump has been really, nice to them and saying all the right things and all that. One can only, imagine that this is possibly one of the reasons that the US wanted Pakistan to be on their side, especially for this particular thing in Iraq.
Exactly.
And you just have to go back into history, Advaita. You just see in 1979, you had Zia ul Haq in the doghouse. He was under tremendous pressure for having overthrown Zulfikar Ali Bhutto and murdering him, having him executed. And then, lo and behold, the Soviet Union invades Afghanistan, and Pakistan becomes this major frontline state in the war against Soviet Union and Afghanistan, right? Uh, the war gets over, Zia disappears in a fireball, and you have 9/11 in 2001. You have another dictator who's in power at that time, feeling the global heat, Pervez Musharraf, and he becomes a major non-NATO ally for the United States, and he gives them their bases and seaports and transit access and all of that, and helps fight the Taliban while supplying the Taliban at the same time. The double game, and so you have 2025 Asim Munir. He's yet another dictator. He's actually I call him a dictator who's taken over with a soft coup. He doesn't have to really sit in the chair. He just has a puppet prime minister, and he's exercising all power from behind the scenes. So here you have the Pakistan army doing what it's always been doing, being the mercenary army that it's always been. Renting itself out to the highest bidder. In this case, the United States.
No, you're absolutely right. And the other thing also, Sandeep, is the Americans are going in there. The Chinese have said a few things. I don't see the Chinese actually getting into a face-off with the Americans. I don't see that. But what I do see could happen is maybe the Chinese opening up another theater, which is in Taiwan, to offset what is happening there, because that has been a strategic goal for them. And that will then immediately get the Americans activated on another front in a more direct way.
So I see from the way things are going right now, the Chinese must be delighted with the way the Americans are heading into the Gulf, and they would actually want the Americans to be involved in the Gulf so that they can, push that the Taiwan agenda, because for them, and especially for Xi Jinping, all that matters is Taiwan, the recapture of Taiwan.
Yes.
And that is his stated goal. They say as early as 2027, which is just 2 years away. But for them, Iran is, it's too bad that Iran, is being hammered and it is under the kind of pressure that it is. It's not exactly regime change, but they're very close to it. The regime in Iran has been very resilient. It's survived 45 years. But today, it's facing one of its biggest existential challenges. This wave of attacks from Israel and the American attacks today.
But here's the fix, right? Because even for those of us who are not really, supporting this kind of war, the regime itself, at least for me, is so not good with women that I can't seem to feel much sympathy there for the regime in particular, although I do for the Iranian people. And it's just a sad situation,
It is such an utterly tragic situation, Advait. As you mentioned, it's a regime that's oppressing its people, it's executing its people. Something like 480 people were executed last year, publicly hanged for opposing the regime. Women have been persecuted. All of the kind of things that evil regimes do. But still, they are a country that's we regard them as a strategic partner because they're very key for India.
Oh, and they're good with us. They're definitely good with us. From that perspective, I mean, of course, I think they are friends of India. There's no doubt about that. But
they've not been inimical to our interests. They've facilitated our access to Afghanistan, the Central Asia, the North-South corridor to the Russian Federation, Chabahar port, which we're developing for them, with them. So Iran is a very key geopolitical partner for us. And that's something that, we'll be very well aware of when we're putting out our statements. So you saw the Prime Minister today condemning the thing. So Iran is very important to us. Israel is important to us, and so is Iran.
But here's the thing: the regime in Iran has played it very wrong because, see, they're kind of surrounded by Sunni neighbors who don't like them, who challenge their very existence, and yet they've chosen the path of being opaque. They've gone into the Gaza situation when Sunni countries, and the Gazans are Sunnis, have not gone into this. So they have done, in a sense, responded to a moral call also. They have.
So the biggest cause, the biggest Sunni Arab cause today is the cause of Palestine, right? These, the Palestinians who are Sunni Arabs and who are supposedly been oppressed by the Israelis, and they've been they've been removed. They've lost their country there. Now, here's the thing: that a country that is neither Sunni nor Arab, which is Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran, has taken up this cause and is
Yeah.
willing to fight
They're
for it.
Persian. Yeah.
And this is, and in some senses, if you look at it, it's stupidity. Why would Iran jump into this conflict 20 months back, activate its ring of
It's
Shia
also,
proxies?
Sandeep, there's Sandeep, two ways of looking at it? One is, of course, stupidity, and then the other is actually ethical. There's a morality to it as well, right? Because if you truly believe that these people are being oppressed and treated wrongly,
Yeah.
you're sticking your neck out when you don't have to.
Well, and they're paying the consequences for sticking their neck out, because look at where Iran is today. Like I keep saying that, as of the 6th of October 2023, you could drive from the Mediterranean Sea to the Arabian Sea, that territory, from one shore of the Mediterranean Sea to the shore of the Arabian Sea, without crossing a single Sunni Arab country, right? That is Syria, Iraq, and finally Iran on the border with Pakistan. And today, you have Syria is completely gone, it's shattered, the house of Assad has vanished. The Hezbollah is decapitated, literally, they're running around like headless chickens. The Houthis are under tremendous pressure. Hamas is being, practically, their entire leadership is dead. They've lost a lot of people there in Gaza. And all of Iran's network of proxies, which they help, which General Qasem Soleimani built over 20 years, it's all gone. And today the bombs are falling on Iran and it's destroyed.
Suleiman.
Yeah, Qasem Soleimani. The bombs are falling on Iran today. It's destroyed their nuclear enrichment facilities, which was meant to be, a capability that could give them a bomb in the near future. Maybe not immediately, but that was an option for them, that they would get a bomb at some point if they so desired. So today, all of that is in ashes just because they jumped into this war, which wasn't really their war. And why? What is the need for fighting this war with Israel, a country which is not even your neighbor? You don't have any geographical border with it. It's more than 1,000 kilometers away, and they've chosen to
Exactly.
go on.
So that's what I'm saying. No, Sandeep, that's what I'm saying. There is a morality to it also. If you were to look at this not from like warfare and any kind of tribalism, but just from the moral question, there is a morality, because you are seeing, in your opinion, people are being oppressed. They are Islamic family, and you're doing something about it. So there is something to be said for that, I have to say. And frankly, I mean, all for Israel in terms of their right to defend themselves and all of those things. But frankly, I mean, starving children is just not going to cut it with anybody, except for the most kind of rabid Israel supporters. But that's a real problem, at least for me personally. Yeah. So Sandeep, I just want to thank you. It's been terrible connection. I have two Wi-Fi connections, if you'd believe it, and both of them are really bad. Okay, Kshitij has asked us a question, Sandeep, so we've got to ask you this. It's thank you,
Yes.
Kshitij, for your super chat. And the question is difference between bomber, attacker, fighter, and any type of other aircraft. Why is the bomber so costly? Which type of aircraft is most decisive in a war? Great
Well,
question.
it's a good question. It's basically horses for courses, right? You have bombers and you have fighter aircraft. You have fighter bombers as well, which is fighter aircraft which carry bombs to attack targets on the ground. Now, bombers are specialist aircraft. They carry a very heavy payload. They can carry up to 30 to 40 tons of weapons. Like I told you, that one GPU 57 is the weight of nearly 3 MiG-21 aircrafts, right? And one B2 can carry two of those, which means it can carry the equivalent of 6 MiG-21 fighter jets, right? That is the carrying capacity of a bomber, right? And that is a lot of ordnance that can drop on targets, destroy them completely. So it's literally the carrying capacity, how much ordnance it can carry, and to what distances it can carry them. It's like
Okay,
a big, yeah.
Sandeep, this is sort of a morbid layperson analysis, but if what the Americans dropped, what the B2s dropped in Iran, if you drop that in, say, Delhi, what all areas would it like engulf?
Well, it would reduce several hundred, a few kilometers, extensive damage. There would be a massive a blast wave that would, it's a very powerful thing. It would be the equivalent of, if you remember the explosive that went off in Beirut about 3 or 4 years back.
Yeah, 5 years ago, 2020.
Yes, 2020.
The port, at the port. Yeah.
At the port. So that would be the kind of impact that you would see if it went off, in the open in a city. It would level a lot of blocks and stuff like that. 1 or 2 square kilometers for sure would be completely obliterated. So it's a very powerful explosive, that thing, and it's the most powerful non-nuclear explosive. That's what they call it.
Oh, that's interesting, because if you're saying it's the most powerful non-nuclear explosive, then it's a serious intervention. It's not. It's not like, it's not flexing anymore.
Yeah, it's using this to get the job done, I think, which is what
Trump
wanted. A quick in and out and mission accomplished.
Yeah. So, Sandeep, thank you so much. I know you're crazy busy, but I forced you to come, and I'm so glad you did, even though you were not here for a good part of that conversation, and I had to wing it on my own, no pun intended, but I did. And then when I was not part of the conversation and I thought you'll have no problem holding the audience, I come back live and you're eating. So there you go. So I hope my viewers realize, no matter how much they troll me and mock me and make fun of me and get irritated with me, it's fine. You can do all those things, but I'm the one who cares. Okay?
Yeah.
And that must mean something. So we're going to be back at 8 p.m. Not with Sandeep, because he's going to be on TV at 8 p.m. with another favorite of mine, Gaurav Sawant. So say hi to Mr. Sawant from me. And we will be back with your favorite AIM, who will be back at 8 p.m. Yes, he's going to be here. So you can listen. Now, that's a great panel, because I can disappear and they'll keep talking. You know what I've been thinking lately, Sandeep, with the amount of trolling I get and the fact that nobody wants to hear me speak, is that in my little window, I'll just do makeup tutorials while the show is going on. What do you think?
That's a great thought. I look forward to you doing that, Advaita.
I'll do the makeup tutorial in my window, and then these guys can keep talking. And thank you so much, Jai Shri Ram. He's saying, Jai Shri Ram. So he'll say Tiger is traveling. He's on holiday, of course. It's summer. So, bade log. But Sandeep's gone. And we will be back at 8 p.m. With the usual gang. I really wanted to get this in, because for you all, of course, but also for me, because when I saw those photographs of those B2s, I was like, okay, let's find out a little more about this. And Sandeep is so brilliant. He eats, breathes, lives this stuff. So he knows so much about it. So keep your questions coming, and we will be back, of course, at 8 p.m. Like I said, with the usual gang. Sandeep Ghosh will be there, AIM will be there, Pallavi will be there, and Professor will be there. So everyone is going to be there, essentially, except for Sohail. So we shall see you back at 8 p.m. And thank you so much. I apologize for the craziness today, but like I said, Sandeep's basically, he's contracted with television for this whole series. So it's very hard to get him in, and he had a little time between shows. So that's when I grabbed him. So I'll see you guys at 8 p.m. Thank you for watching, and be good, stay safe, and bye for now.